Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Let's talk about Tom Brady, $500,000, a football, and a supposedly innocent Timmy in the mix. How do you think this is going to end? Well, spoiler alert, Timmy is going to end up getting slapped in the face with a stale donut so many times that it's going to end up costing him a little over $500,000. Now, if you haven't heard this story, rest assured, I got all my bases covered, or I should say, in this particular instance, all my touchdowns covered. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm really not a big sports fan. But just know I did put a link to the original article where this premiered in the video description below so you can read through this. This is a great lesson to anybody attempting to invest in the antiques and collectibles trade. If you are investing in modern era sports memorabilia or pretty much any collecting category that is attached to a living, breathing human being that is still alive. So that could mean art, that could mean any actor or actress, that could even mean any politician, any entertainer out there that is still alive. If you are trying to invest in any particular antique or collectible that is related to that person, understand that you are taking an added level of risk. I've said this before. If you're going to invest in sports memorabilia, you are better off investing in sports memorabilia or trading cards for athletes that are already dead. Go after your Mickey Mantles, go after your Babe Ruths. Anytime you try to invest in living sports memorabilia attributed to athletes that are still alive, you have to understand that the decisions they make day in and day out related to their professional career, or if they do something stupid, they get accused of doping up with steroids, or they get accused of sexual assault, it is going to directly affect the value of your holdings. It's no different. If you invest in high-end art, I tell you, if you have the means, go after a Picasso, go after a Monet, go after a Rembrandt. If you are buying art from an artist that is still alive, you are adding an extra layer of risk. So let's talk about this in this context. For those that are unaware, an unknown fan out there literally paid more than $500,000 for the last known football that Tom Brady threw in an NFL game before announcing his retirement. Now, at that particular time, that seemed like a very intelligent decision. So this particular individual took part in an online auction. I think the auction was Leland, and he bid it fair and square on this particular last football that Tom Brady threw before announcing his retirement. So he probably thought he was making a wise decision to invest in this particular piece. Well, lo and behold, literally 24 hours after the auction ends, Tom Brady comes out and says, you know what? I'm really not into this whole retirement thing. It's not like me to just sit on the couch, eat Doritos, and stare at my beautiful wife in my mansion. Therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return to playing football probably next season. And all of a sudden, guess what? The value of that football that sold for a little over $500,000 just plummeted with that announcement alone. Now, to be fair, I have no idea what was going through the head of the buyer who attempted to either invest or purchase this particular piece. What I am going to tell you, though, is this is why you must assess risk versus reward in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. Please understand that if you are buying any type of antique or collectible for long-term investment, and the particular individual that particular antique or collectible is attached to, whether it be a politician, a musician, an artist, in this case, an athlete, you are taking on an extra layer of risk. This is something that I try to bang in to the heads of sports memorabilia collectors, even art collectors, even collectors out there that try to invest in signed documents from politicians or actors and actresses. You need to understand this lesson. This is a primary lesson of risk versus reward in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. And it is not going to work out for this particular bidder. Now, a lot of people have been stating that, well, Sean, shouldn't the auction house be liable in this instance? And I keep shaking my head. Why would the auction house be liable in this instance? An auction house has a fiduciary responsibility to the consignor and or seller of this particular item. At the time that piece was auctioned, at the time that piece was consigned, nobody thought that Tom Brady was going to change his mind about retirement. Even during that particular auction, the auction ended 24 hours later was when it was announced that Tom Brady is pretty much not retiring, or I should say he's coming back out of retirement. So the auction company didn't do anything wrong in this instance. The seller, the consignor, didn't do anything wrong. As a matter of fact, the consignor was very intelligent. He said, you know what? I got this football here. Right now, Tom Brady just announced retirement. I'm going to get max value if I sell right now. He made a very wise decision in this case, as we're seeing. Now, a lot of people are asking me, well, Sean, I read somewhere that if they were to appraise this football now, it would be worth roughly $20,000. How could an item like this drop literally almost $500,000 in value? It's simple. These are unregulated markets, guys. There's no one here that's going to protect you from spending $500,000 on something like this and then expecting you to be able to go, well, wait a minute, I was scammed. This particular individual announced now that he's not retiring. That's the risk you take in this market. So what is the lesson if you do want to protect yourself? If you're investing in any market that is directly correlated or related to a famous living person, athlete, musician, entertainer, artist, whoever it is, understand that the value of that particular piece can fluctuate due to the actions and decisions of that particular individual. If you don't believe me, let's just look right now at sports memorabilia. How many scandals have rocked the sports world over the last 10 to 20 years? We can go all the way back to Kobe Bryant being accused of sexual assault. We can go all the way back, Barry Bonds, Pete Rose. All of these individuals have had their fair share of controversies. This affects the value of those particular pieces. One thing that I will tell you that pop culture collectors never have to worry about, Pikachu is never going to get accused of sexual assault. Batman is never, ever going to most likely shoot up drugs to the point where people go, you know, I'm not reading any more Batman comics. Superman isn't going to stay dead. You don't have to worry about that. Spoiler alert. And in most cases, a lot of the companies that own those IPs or those franchises, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Pokemon, whether it's Magic the Gathering, whatever it is, whether it's Marvel Comics, DC Comics, they pretty much make sure that the reputation of those characters is maintained intact because, spoiler alert, none of those characters are real. You're not going to be able to run into Liliana the Planeswalker anytime soon. Just like, I hate to break it to you, Super Mario isn't real either. I'm sorry, I know I probably broke somebody's heart out there, but rest assured, Mario isn't a real person, neither is Luigi, at least not in the Nintendo sense. So with that being said, you have to understand that when you invest in these markets, there is inherent risk versus reward. A lot of you guys are coming into these markets with dollar signs in your eyes, and you're not understanding that if you choose to buy a piece of sports memorabilia that is attached to a current living, breathing athlete that is either involved in the sport directly or has since retired, his actions are going to govern the value of that piece over the course of history. Said a different way, if I go into the marketplace and I buy a signed historic artifact from George Washington or Abraham Lincoln, I do not have to worry about George Washington or Abraham Lincoln doing something stupid that's going to affect the value of that particular item because guess what? They're already dead. History has already declared them the victors, meaning we already know their reputation throughout history. All you got to do is open up a history book and you're going to read about George Washington, you're going to read about Abraham Lincoln. So if you want to invest in any of their items, you don't have to worry about something they're going to do that's going to cause that market to tumble like you would if you are buying the supposed last football that Tom Brady threw in an NFL game before announcing retirement. Please learn from this. Please understand that if you are a sports memorabilia collector and you are going after items that are still attributed to an athlete, you are taking on extended risk. Go after dead athletes' collectibles. Go after your Mickey Mantles. Go after your Babe Ruths. Go after items like that. Don't focus on living athletes for this very reason. That is the end of the lesson today. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.